there was almost like a hangover from weed. I felt a bit off and I couldn't figure it out what it was. And I said, maybe it's because of the weed and I have done something to my brain. And I feel that I was so busy with trying to find what is wrong with me that I had a nervous breakdown and I couldn't actually stand. And I sat there and I held my head and I was like, what is going on with me? I have never felt anything like this. Like something is broken within my brain. At a point, I was ready to give my little pinky. I had this thought always that I would give my little pinky to just feel normal again.
Now that you've fully recovered from depersonalization, derealization disorder, is getting back to normal really getting back to normal?
Yes, it's very simple to get out of this. I mean, I know for the viewers or people going through it right now, it might seem impossible that someone can say this, but if you do it correctly and you know what to do, how simple the recovery can be, you can get through this. You're stronger than it. It's not stronger than you.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, creator of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm doing a follow-up interview with someone we've spoken to before to talk about life after weed-induced depersonalization derealization disorder and what long-term DPDR recovery really looks like. I'm speaking with Mobin Nawabi from Munich in Germany. Some of you may recognize Mobin because his recovery interview was actually the very first interview I ever posted on this channel back in September of 2022. If you haven't seen that original interview, I'll link to it in the video description so you can go and check it out afterwards. But just to recap, Mobin developed severe depersonalization derealization disorder after a frightening experience with cannabis, which triggered intense anxiety, panic attacks, and a sudden sense of disconnection from himself and the world around him. His symptoms included feeling disconnected from reality and his surroundings, constant anxiety and racing thoughts, blurry vision and difficulty thinking clearly, and a frightening sense of being trapped inside his own mind. Mobin described how his entire life seemed to turn upside down in the space of just a couple of weeks, going from feeling normal to suddenly feeling detached from everything that had once felt familiar and meaningful. But the reason I'm especially excited to do this follow-up interview is that more than 3 years have now passed since Mobin recovered from DPDR. And that's incredibly important, because one of the biggest fears people have when they're going through this condition is the worry that even if they improve, they might never feel 100% normal again, that some part of the DPDR might always remain. But Mobin's experience shows that this fear simply isn't true. He has made a full recovery, and he's been living his normal life again for several years now. So today we're going to talk about what that actually looks like, what life after DPDR is really like, how his perspective has changed with time, and what it feels like to look back on the experience now that it's far behind him. Mobin, it's great to have you back on the channel. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Great to be back, Sean, and happy to see you again. Always glad to have a chat with you, and yeah, good to be back.
You're the first interviewee that I ever had on the channel, and the reason that we did that was because you contacted me to say I'd love to tell my story on the channel. And I remember when I got that email, I was really excited to share your story and thinking that, like, this could be a nice, interesting part of the channel to have. But it took off. Your interview got so many views. I think it's still maybe the most viewed across the channel. But it also inspired loads of other people to contact me and say that they'd like to share their story. So now here we are 3 years later, more than 3 years later, and there's an entire library of recovery interviews with people from all over the world. I think there's almost 100 now. But those are there because you contacted me to share your story originally, which opened the gates for everyone else to share their stories too. So thank you. So thank you for that, man. Much appreciated.
So I gladly did it, and I'm happy that it started this chain reaction of recovery stories on the channel, and I'm also proud of that. Proud of it that I have the most views amongst the recovery stories, and I'm the OG one. So no, but on a serious note, I'm very glad that there's so much material on DPDR and so much recovery stories. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a really good thing. I think that back when I had the condition, I mean, what I wouldn't have given to have seen an interview with someone who had gone through this, um, just to give me that sense of ease and just that sense of understanding that like other people have this, um,
Yeah.
and for someone to talk through their experience as well would have given me so much, such a sense of relief. So it's great. I'm so happy that that's like the biggest part of the channel now is the recovery interviews. So I'm thrilled that they're still going strong.
Yeah, yeah, that's a strong part of the materials. One of the things the viewers or the ones that are going through it enjoy the most, seeing someone recover is always it calms them down and puts a huge weight off of them.
I know we've covered in the first interview, but just for people who might not have seen it, could you just maybe quickly talk us through what happened and your experience with it, what set things off, and your experience?
Well, I smoked weed for 1 week. It was about 3 or 4 times, and I enjoyed it. I didn't feel rightly after I was high or within my high. I hadn't any panic attacks. I enjoyed it actually, but then after some days, I felt weird. I mean, there was almost like a hangover from weed. I felt a bit off, and I couldn't figure it out what it was. It was the first time in my life that I actually thought that I might be feeling de- depressed emotion, which I never had back then in my life. And I said, "Oh, okay, this is new. I'm feeling a little bit off. I'm feeling not so happy as usually." So it started like this. It was this little feeling that I was aware of it, that I couldn't quite figure what it is. I couldn't feel happy as the usual days. And then after 2 or 3 days, I was sitting in my bed and looking in my room, and I suddenly this panic attack hit me out of nowhere. And I wasn't sure what this is. And I was immediately, because I had this hangover of this weed, I connected these two experiences, and I said, maybe it's because of the weed and I have done something to my brain. That was the conclusion that I had. So I had this panic attack, and it went for 5 minutes. And then what I did is I opened my phone and went straight to Google to find out what's going on with me. And that's the sort of it. I mean, you know what happens after that. You go to the forums, and eventually you try to find what it is, and you have topics and themes of schizophrenia and whatever, and dementia, and it made it worse. And I was reading them, and I instead to say to myself, okay, this is a bit too much. I don't have dementia. But actually, when I read them, I said, maybe I have dementia. So I couldn't notice that this is actually anxiety talking out of me. I thought these are my normal thoughts, and I'm coming. I have these conclusions, and these are very normal thoughts. It wasn't that I thought I didn't knew that this is anxiety. So it went on, and eventually after 2 weeks, I understood that through the forums and videos that there's a condition called DP and DR. So yeah, that's how my story went, and then it was good to know it. I felt very good to know. Okay, finally I found this. What this is. I then read stories about people who had them for 10 years, so and this made it worse. Yeah, this is the story.
And what age were you then, Mo?
I was 21 years old, 20 or 21 years old. I think 20. I got 21. Yes, so fresh. I have fresh 21-year-old.
Mo, can you? I know again something we would have covered in the first interview, but people are always really interested to know. Can you just talk us through the most intense symptoms you experienced in your time with the condition?
Um, Actually, the first symptoms I experienced was um, breaking down completely, my feelings and physically, actually. I remember 2 days afterwards, when I still didn't knew what this was, I went out with a family member of ours for a walk, and we wanted to eat and go out. And I feel that I was so busy with trying to find what is wrong with me that I had a nervous breakdown and I couldn't actually stand. I was so shaking that I had to actually tell an old guy if he can stand up so I can sit because I was feeling so bad. And the guy, of course, he said he knew that he saw in my face that something is wrong with me. So he said, "Okay, you can have the seat now." And I sat there and I held my head and I was like, "What is going on with me? I have never felt anything like this. Like something is broken within my brain." And it's hard to describe how intense these feelings, negative feelings, can be, Sean, as you know.
If you're enjoying Mobin's DPDR recovery story and thinking to yourself, I'm finally ready for my recovery story, the good news is that you can start today and you don't have to figure it out alone. The exact step-by-step process that Mobin used to recover is in the DP manual, my complete depersonalization and derealization recovery program, with over 10 hours of content that goes far deeper than anything available on YouTube. Tens of thousands of people have already used it to fully recover, and you can too. And if you'd like personal reassurance and guidance from someone who's actually been through this, I also offer private one-to-one DPDR recovery Zoom coaching sessions. So if you're finally ready to move from watching recovery stories to starting your very own today, the links are in the description. Back to the interview.
And it's hard to describe how intense these feelings, negative feelings, can be, Sean, as you know. And throughout the recovery was this. I was annoyed with how long it took. Everyone is like this. Like you will never have a point where you're not annoyed with it, even within the recovery, because it requires a lot of patience. So being annoyed is also a part of it.
Yeah. Something I always like to say to people is, well, people sometimes say to me, well, I'm not recovering as quickly as I'd like. I always say nobody with an anxiety-based condition ever recovered as quickly as they would like. Because if they did, it wouldn't be an anxiety-based condition. Because as quickly as I would like is now. I wanted to stop now. Or, okay, tomorrow, we'll say tomorrow morning. I'll take tomorrow morning. Oh no, it's not going to happen that quick. It'll happen, but it's not going to happen that quickly. So part of recovery is accepting that annoyance. Listen, this is it. Like, you're allowed to feel annoyed. Like, you're allowed to be pissed off about this. It's an incredibly frustrating situation. It really is. But you're allowed to feel annoyed. You're allowed to feel frustrated with us. If you didn't feel annoyed, it would be weird, right? When I was going through DPDR, I remember feeling like depressed. Like I got very, very depressed at one point and just thinking like, well, grieving for the life that I had, it's all gone now. And then I became terrified that I had now developed depression on top of DPDR. So I was Mount Everest and then another Mount Everest. And then when I recovered, I looked back on it and I remember thinking to myself, like, of course I felt depressed. Like, I mean, I wasn't able to listen to music and enjoy it anymore. Like, if you don't feel a sense of depression about that, or at the least intense frustration, it would be strange. Like, you're allowed to feel that, But so when you look back on it, it makes complete sense that you would have a sense of depression and frustration about it. But when you're going through it, you're thinking, oh God, now I have depression as well as DPDR, and which makes this impossible to recover from. It's so interesting that, like, when we look at our experience without the filter of anxiety, it just makes complete sense. Like, it's as clear as day, and you've been reacting in a healthy way to all of these strange symptoms the whole time. But the beauty of recovery is that you understand that all these strange symptoms are actually not strange at all. They're just strange because you hadn't encountered them before, or at least you hadn't encountered them in a situation where you weren't in danger. But now that you do understand them, you can stop. You're a lot more compassionate with yourself, and you're not kicking yourself and feeling ashamed or frustrated with yourself. You just kind of go, okay, I get it. I went through I was on a roller coaster, but now I see what it was, and and I'm okay with it, you know?
And it's okay, as you said, to have these thoughts because the brain and the body can do amazing things. And you can see it from that lens, maybe, that, yeah, your brain is capable of showing you this level of anxiety and fear and these weird symptoms, as weird as they are. It's normal. If you're experiencing it, it's your brain doing it, and a brain is a phenomenal thing, and it's okay to have them. And you will learn to know and understand that this is okay to have all these thoughts, all these symptoms, the annoyance of it, being impatient with it. It's part of the journey, man. So don't beat yourself because you can't stop thinking about it or you can't stop the symptoms. Let them be, sit with them. It's okay. Have them there, but carry on with your life. And you will slowly and very slowly start to understand and build a trust that, oh, I can see I can manage this, and it is possible to not think about it. Or I mean, what I mean is you can experience these moments where you don't think about DP and DR, and these are the blissful moments in your life at that moment. For even if it is for 5 minutes, and you say, "Oh my God, what did I did there? Something happened. Oh, wait a minute." So then you're starting to build a trust on what you're doing. Okay, just carrying on with my life. Do has a effect on it, and you do it again and again, and you get impatient, but you calm yourself and you're collected and you carry on. And the anxiety is like, it's not, as you discussed, Sean, it's not a straight line that goes down, or even a line that goes slightly down and slightly up and then down, and eventually it's like this, man. It's like it goes like, it's chaotic and you cannot predict it. It's unpredictable. You might have 5 days where feeling completely normal, and out of nowhere, a thought comes in your head, and you're back in an anxious mode. It's okay. Don't feel frightened. Don't feel that you're experiencing something new. It's a part of it. Be okay with it.
Since you've been on the channel, how is life? What have you been up to?
And life is amazing, just normal as it was before my DP and DR experience. I've been doing just the normal stuff in my life, working, being with my friends, chatting, having fun, and just carry on with the normal task of daily life. And it's been a good ride and a good journey, and I'm happy for the experience. But life is just normal.
I think that's the thing that everyone can't imagine when you're going through it, is that life could get back to normal, because you feel like you can't even imagine what normal felt like. You can't remember what normal felt like. So the idea of getting back to normal feels impossible. You can't touch it, you can't grab it. But then when it happens, it's so it's so getting back to normal that it's kind of boring. You just get back to doing what you were doing before, with all the normal worries and, concerns, your day-to-day stuff. It's a lovely process.
It's a lovely process indeed. Um, same as you, Sean. I had the same feeling of uncertainty and doubting myself. How would life feel like even if I recover? So I wasn't even uncertain if I did recover, but if I do, how would it feel like? Because I couldn't imagine it. But yeah, it's surprisingly uh normal, and you just get on with life, and everything is normal, and nothing that will make you think you will get back to it if you do a certain thing, or if you, I don't know, think about it all the time again, that it might trigger the condition. No, it's just normal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mo, now that you've got years of recovery behind you, um, how do you think back on DP and DR and your experience with it? What takeaways do you have from it now?
Um, well, I'm glad that so many people are recovering, and they are posting their recovery stories on YouTube and doing podcasts and such. I'm very glad to see these things, and the condition is getting more recognition. But as my own experience and the recovery that I've put behind, and now looking back at it, um, how simple the recovery is actually, and how easy, not easy, but if you do it correctly and you know what to do, how simple the recovery can be. And if you're in it, your mind is these thoughts are spiraling out of nowhere, and you're thinking 10 or 20 thoughts a minute, a second even, and you don't know how to get out of it. And these unreal and scary symptoms puts a huge left weight on you, and you're uncertain about it. But yeah, it's very simple to get out of this. I mean, I know for the viewers or people going through it right now, it might seem impossible that someone can say this, but actually it is this simple, and everyone recovers from it, and there are no exceptions, and you will recover also from this. It's not a lifelong condition, and when you get back to normal, you will say the exact same things that I'm saying right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I was really happy that, having you be the first story on the channel, that your experience involves weed. That was part of the trigger, because that was part of the trigger for me as well. And it's so common. It is so, so common, especially for younger people. Um, a bad drug experience, in particular, weed. And because weed is now legalized in the States and in many other countries, it's just very common. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but it just means that people get access to very strong cannabis at a younger age. Um, but I remember when it happened to me, and I was over in Amsterdam, and I had a terrible experience, and then had another panic attack a few weeks later. But I was, I felt so guilty, and I felt terrified that I had damaged my brain, and that I had kind of, I'd messed around with drugs, and now I had flicked a switch in my brain. I was now stuck like this forever. And it took me a long time to be able to kind of understand that in a more healthy way. And it was only kind of through my recovery that I was able to look back on it and say, okay, well, look, there was no reason to feel guilty about it, or to feel ashamed about it. I had a panic attack, essentially. That's all. Um, but now that you look back on your experience, and having cannabis being a part of the trigger, how do you feel about that in retrospect?
Well, yeah, same as you. I also blamed myself and was very sad that this happened to me. Feeling of being sad with my being sad and sorry for my state, and thinking that I have done something very wrong, and I shouldn't have done this, and this is also something that will make you even worse. Thinking like that. Uh, but now looking back at it, it's it was just my reaction to the weed, or to that experience. It had nothing to do with weed at all. And actually, after my recovery, I have smoked weed. I mean, not to recommend it. If you want to do it and you feel okay with it, you can do it. And I have done it many times. I don't do it anymore because I don't like to feel so lazy, because I feel very lazy when I smoke. I've stopped it completely, but I have done. I smoked, I think, about 3 months every day, almost every day, and nothing happened. I went through it, recovered, and I got back to smoking. It just shows you whatever initially started your condition, your DPDR condition. If you go back to it and do it again, whether it's meditation or, I don't know, working a lot or weed-induced DPDR, you just can't go back to it. There's no trigger point or any trigger thing that you will have after recovery that will stuck around for the rest of your life, and you can only say, I'm about 95% recovered. But if I do these things, for instance, smoke weed or drink too much coffee, I will go back to my initial DP and DR moment or situation. That's not the case. You will be 100% normal, and yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The example I always like to give is, I think, if someone drinks 4 cups of coffee and they have a panic attack, do they then need to be like afraid of coffee forever?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't. You don't. And people might say, but what if I smell coffee again? Will that trigger it? And it's like, no. Now you temporarily have this association with the coffee and the smell of coffee and the taste of it, but that's not what the trigger is. Like, these are the circumstances that led to it, but it was your reaction to the feeling of anxiety that caused the condition, be it GPDR or agoraphobia or whatever, to occur. Um, yeah, and yeah, I've smoked as well since recovering and been fine. I've even had like one or two not great experiences on after smoking, but that's what happens, sometimes. And but also, it's up to people. People can make their own decisions about it. What I do say to people is, look, if when you are fully recovered from this, if you decide that you would like to smoke again, okay, that's up to you. Take it slowly. Start with a very weak strain. Take one or two of see how you get on, and just take it from there. That's all you need to do. There's no pressure. There's no, and if you're feeling social pressure to do it, forget that. That's not your business. Life gets back to normal, and you can take these things at your own pace. Be judicious. Be careful with it. Um, but what we don't need to do is say that, like, after recovery, that there's certain things that will send me into panic, because that's not recovery. That's worrying that there's certain things that will always send me into panic. It's just another one of these associations that we have, that after recovery will fade away and stop, and we live our lives as normal. Um, but yeah, and then people will also. I mean, look, I've also spoken to people who have, after DPDR, said, that's it. I'm never going to smoke again, and that's absolutely fair as well. People might change their lifestyles as a result to try to be more healthy in general. That's absolutely fine as well. However you make those decisions, your life gets back to normal anyway. And like, recovery is recovery. There's no like recovery with small print or an asterisk. It is recovery.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. So, Mo, looking back on your experience, with DPDR, people will often say, what does recovery feel like? So, and often is in the interviews, there'll be people who've. So the last time I spoke to you, would have been, you would have it was relatively soon after you recovered. But now that you look back on this with a couple of years of experience behind you, how did recovery feel when you were going through it?
Well, recovery, when you're in the condition, it feels like a battlefield that you have to carry on, and it requires a lot of patience. A lot of patience. Not to say that you have to fight it or give you the idea that you have to force yourself out of the condition. I don't mean it in that sense. When I say battlefield, but I mean you have to practice patience, and it's heavy. But now looking back from it, it's actually very simple. You get out of it, and your body wants to get out of it. That's the most important thing that people forget. It's something unconscious that happens slowly, and your nervous system calms down, and your body and mind understand it as something that's not very harmful, actually. It's just there to protect you. And if you let it just be and don't touch it and just live your life and don't try to find a way or get out of it quickly, or find an antidote, or a pill that you can take and it's over and gone in the next 24 hours. If you just give up this mindset and let it be, you slowly know how to deal with it and how to get out of it. And yeah, and it's actually just as simple as that. I know it feels very, very hard and very heavy on you, but you have to be patient.
Patience is a virtue. Patience is absolutely part of the recovery process. I think, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give to people, or that I would have given to myself back in the day, is like, Sean, be patient. Because what we want to do is to stop it in the moment. How can I stop this now? What can I do today that I'll wake up tomorrow morning and all the DP and DR is gone, and all these thoughts and feelings are gone? And that's unrealistic. It's unfair to expect that of yourself, because that's not how habits work. It's not like you have a habit that you've been practicing for a couple of months or however long, and then that just overnight you wake up and it's gone. That doesn't mean you can't get rid of it. Of course you can. You can get rid of this completely, but expecting it to happen now or like tomorrow morning is unfair, because the way that recovery happens is it's small incremental improvements build up over time, and that requires patience.
Yeah.
You just have to be, in the same way that if you're going down to the gym and you wanted to build up a bit of muscle or lose a bit of weight, like you're not going to go down to the gym and then like 20 minutes later come out and you're ripped. Like, it takes time. You have to be patient, because you're changing a pattern of thought and behavior over time, and it takes consistency and discipline, but it works every time. But I think that when we're in the anxiety and DP and DR, we so desperately want it to stop that we try to find a power button. There has to be an off button here somewhere. And then when we can't find it, that makes us more anxious and makes us want to research more and keep asking questions, and we stay stuck in that loop for quite some time. Something that that people have been talking to me about a lot, Mo, that I wanted to ask you as well. People have been talking to me a lot about ChatGPT and saying that, it can be really helpful in some ways, but then also it just tends to lead to a constant loop of questions, because it's almost like research. It's like being on the forums, except you're having an immediate conversation. And I know that if back in 2005 I had access to ChatGPT, I would have never been off of it. I would have been on that app 24/7 asking questions about the specific symptom, the specific thought, the specific feeling. I wonder what are your thoughts on that as someone who kind of went through the whole intensive research phase of it? Like, what are your thoughts on ChatGPT?
I'm very glad that I also hadn't had a ChatGPT back then. Very glad, because the more you research about it, as it's so common and well explained, it keeps you on and it keeps you stuck in the condition. So very glad that I didn't have it. And ChatGPT is very good for doing your homeworks, writing your emails, and some essays, but don't use it for mental stuff, because it's like back then I heard something in the lines of ChatGPT can argue that 8 times 8 could also be 50. And it will explain to you very nicely and neatly and well put together, because it's a language model. And it can explain to you that no, 8 times 8 is actually 50 and not what you're saying. So don't put too much trust in ChatGPT. I know it's amazing to have something like that can quickly write 70-page of essays to you, but it can help you with this big stuff, with this psychological stuff and anxiety or depression or whatever. So stay out of it. It's not a good thing, and it will always give you different answers in the same conversation. So don't rely on it.
Mo, when you look back on it, on your DPDR, did you ever worry that your case was different or more severe than everyone else's? And what would you say to people who feel the same way?
Oh yeah, I mean, the 2/3 of the recovery road, the recovery journey of mine was constantly these thoughts. I had these thoughts always, that especially things like, mine is feed induced and his is the starting point of his journey was something else, and it was triggered by something else. He had a meditation session where he freaked out, and I have an feed induced. So these thoughts are very common, and it's okay to have them. It's you don't have to worry to have these thoughts. It's actually super common and super normal. Everyone has them, and you will have them probably for a longer time. and it's a part of recovery. Have them, let them be, and understand them that it's okay to have them feeling different. But I love one thing you said to me back then. That's a thing that stuck with me in our consultations, and we had many of them. I don't know. I might be the one with the most of the consultations with you, Fran. But I don't know. I just guessing here. But yeah, you said to me, Mo, you're not so special. And that's that. I love that sentence. He said it, and I mean it very respectfully. It's not that you're so special that this condition uh, is something completely different in your case, and 80% or 90% of the other people have the normal one, and you have this different one. And this made me also laugh, and made me think about it differently. And I said, yeah, it's just an anxious thought. It's part of anxiety. It's okay to have them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a big worry that everyone has, is that mine's different. I've got a different version of it. The thing that triggered it for me was different. Or I have the version of this that's going to last for 10 years or 20 years or forever. And a great way of replying to that is to say, you're not that special, like, um, because that's the nature of anxiety, is to say, I'm the different version. I've got the worst version of this. Nobody else quite understands what I'm going through. But part of recovery is understanding that that type of thinking is not based on evidence. It's based on anxiety. It's based on anxiety jumping to the worst possible conclusion. So when we say that, well, I'm actually not that special, it's a real relief, And also when you understand that everybody else has that same fear, literally everybody else who ever had DPDR
Yeah,
ever had the exact same fear. That mine's different, and they had that fear with the same conviction that you had it and everyone else has it. I think mine's different. I'm sure it's different, and it isn't.
it isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What does a normal day look like for you now, Mo, in ways that would have felt completely impossible when you're going through DPDR?
The biggest and the great point is I can talk about DP and DR all the time, and nothing happens. Back then, because one of the symptoms is that you're overwhelmed with your own thoughts and you're thinking about it constantly. And this also is something that annoys everyone the most, having this voice in your head that is so loud, and you're always in a conversation with it, and these linger and last for more weeks and months, and you're thinking, please just keep quiet and just stop. And every time throughout my recovery, when I felt a bit good, when I had good days, 5 or 4 days where I didn't think about DP and DR at all, and then I had the thought about DP and DR, and this put me back, not saying that it was a bad thing, it just was a part of recovery. But that moment you don't see it as something positive, and you're thinking, oh God, I'm thinking about it now, the symptoms are coming back. So that was my biggest fear. And now when I'm completely out of it, I just can talk about TPNDR, help other people, go back to the forums. I just actually, you can go back to the forums when you're healthy. It's not that you have to always run away from it and close your ears when someone talks about depression or anxiety. That was also a huge part. I thought I could never, ever in my life talk again about philosophy, spirituality, the reality of things, because I had this trauma, and I will be never back to a state where I can completely feel normal talking about this stuff. So yeah, a big thing which I'm very happy about is that I can just talk about them normally, like as if they are normal things to talk about, and don't have an association of anxiety sticking with them. And that's the one thing for sure. And the second thing is, I would say I can be lazy and do nothing, which something I couldn't do throughout my recovery. Not that I couldn't do, I could do them, but I couldn't enjoy being bored and being lazy, because the thoughts come back and you're checking again and again if you're feeling normal, which is okay to have them. It's not a bad thing, but actually feeling calm and easy doing nothing is also a good feeling. So yeah, and thirdly, I would say, yeah, these two points are the biggest things for me.
That's great. Yeah. Talking about it, this is something people say to me a lot as well. Is like how are you talking about this? How are you running a YouTube channel about this? Like, and when like, does this not constantly bring back the memories of it for you? And it's like, no. I mean, like it's a thing that happened, and it was awful when I was going through it. But now I get it, and I understand what happened, and it doesn't bother me anymore, and it's completely gone. So, um, it's not this like the thoughts and fears have any weight in and of themselves. It's because we feel so anxious that those thoughts and fears feel strong. Um, but they're actually not. There's no like the fear is coming from the anxiety, not the words themselves. Um, so and then when you come out of it, when you recover completely and your anxiety levels go completely back to normal, you find that you talk about these symptoms and you're kind of like amazed by them. Like I'm amazed that like my brain reacted to high anxiety by creating a sense of disconnection from the world around me. I'm like, that is banana. It's like it's so like what a strange thing for the brain to do. But also I understand it's a protective mechanism. And also I know that like if I was ever in a burning building or I was in physical danger, that my brain would do that again and it could save my life, because it would allow me to not be overwhelmed by fear and to get myself out of it. Like it's kind of amazing, Um, but yeah, we are able to talk about it all day
It,
if we want to.
yeah, exactly. That's the point. People think they might have trigger points after they recover because a big part of this is keeping yourself a bit busy and living your life. But and it's okay to have these thoughts. It's okay to think that you might have a trigger point. I mean, anxiety will attack any thought, any uncertain thought, but it's about building this trust of of knowing that you're okay. You can live with it. You can actually sit with these thoughts and carry on with your life. I mean, a normal state of being would be that if you're watching a Netflix series, that you're all calm and in you with your normal thoughts and you can enjoy something. But you can also watch these shows even when anxiety is there and it's nagging you and bothering you and wants to pull you in and wants you to engage with it. Okay, fine. Uh, you're still there. You're calm and collected, and you can sit with it. It's okay, and you say to it, something that's very important is the mindset to it and how you think about it. You can say to it, okay, if you're stuck around forever with me, I have no problem with you. You can be for many years and I will be not bothered with you. And if you have this mindset, you can do anything in your life and you can expose yourself to it, even if talking with your friends and socializing seems so hard, as an example. Do them. Do not avoid anything, and your body just understands that it's normal and it can do almost anything. And even if it takes if even it is talking about the condition and researching later on, I mean, not researching within if you're within the condition, because the problem of researching, as you know, Sean, is not only that you're busying yourself with these negative descriptions of anxiety of other people. It's also that you are finding a way of getting out of it, but that's exactly the thing that's keeping you in the state. So it's not that you're busying yourself with the negative stories. I mean, yeah, sure, it keeps it makes you scared and you feel very weird reading these and not knowing how to deal with it. But it's also jumping from one uh idea of how to deal with the start into another and never sticking with one of them and just carrying your life. That's the biggest negative thing that someone can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Mo, is there anything that you used to constantly check on or obsess about specifically during DPDR that you don't think about at all anymore?
Well, at the beginning was the perception of my reality. I was constantly uh checking if people had exactly what I have. even I knew, okay, there's a condition called DPDR, and these are the symptoms that I also have. But also within that understanding, I also had to stop. Maybe mine is a little bit different. Maybe some of them have these kind of symptoms, but they don't have what I have, and I would add another symptom. And because it's the nature of anxiety is that you're too hyper aware, you're too focused on yourself, so it makes something more complicated than it actually is. Which, when you recover, you know how simple this thing is, but when you're in it, you think, "Oh my God, this is so complicated." And yeah, that was one of the fears, that my perception is somehow so changed and so different than the other people, that um, I don't have the standard or normal perception anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. We think my perception is broken. That, and it feels visual, but it feels deeper than that as well. It feels like there's like something inside me is damaged. I'm just not seeing reality in the correct way that I used to. I also remember feeling jealous of people who were just like see on the street or like working in office buildings, and I would just feel like, Jesus, like they're so lucky. Like just how lovely it would be to just walk down the street and to not be bombarded with thoughts about like the size of the universe, or how my hands look strange, or what did I see at the corner of my vision, like, and and
Yeah,
what I would give just to have that back again, like,
yeah, exactly. I think we talk about this. I was in a point I was ready to give my little pinky. I had this thought always that I would give my little pinky to just feel normal again. Weird thoughts, man. When I think back at them, it's so surreal, and yeah, I'm glad to be normal, and everyone can do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The thing you mentioned as well about being able to enjoy being bored as well is it's so lovely. Just sitting around, and even yesterday, no, I mean, I was working, but I had a bit of a time where I just like sat down and read the newspaper for a while. Uh, had a cup of coffee and just had classical music on in the background, and it was but also just kind of sitting there, and it was raining outside, and just chilling out, like, and thinking, God, this is really nice,
Yeah,
and something that you just completely take for granted when you have it. But the idea that like that could be taken away from you, the fundamental ability to just sit and enjoy the sound of the rain hitting the window while there's some music playing in the background, that like that could be taken away from you, is it's so strange. It's so strange when it happens.
yeah.
And then it feels so precious. This thing that like was taken away from you, now it feels like, as you said, Mo, I would give my pinky finger to be able to experience that again. Um, Fortunately, it doesn't require your pinky finger.
Fortunately, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so Mo, in the time since between you developing the condition and recovering, um, do you think that social awareness of the condition has changed? Do you think more people know about this? Have you come across this in your travels? Have you do people speak to you about it? Have you seen it in the news or anything like that? Or how do you feel about that?
Definitely. More YouTube videos, podcasts, recovery stories, more people like you, Sean, that are willing to help other people. And I've started this journey of helping others. I've seen this kind of attempts and videos and podcasts on YouTube a lot. But I've also encountered people, even in Afghanistan, in my hometown, where you wouldn't think people in that area would also be affected by this condition, but they are, and people constantly feel these symptoms and feelings, but they just carry on with life, I guess. they don't have they don't I mean, it's a blessing to have this opportunity of having access to bunch of websites and Reddit and social media and so much knowledge, let's say, that you can Google anything and you can find it what it is and have collect information about it. But in this case with DPDR, it can also be something bad. So yeah, I guess people in that area of world, they just live with it and they eventually recover. And as I said, more YouTube videos and podcasts, which is very great. And I have even had one of my classmates watched my first recovery story on YouTube back then and contacted me via Instagram and said, "Hey, I saw your testimonial video on this channel," and he wrote to me, and I made sure that everything's all right and he can also recover. So yeah, as you can see, the world is actually very small.
That's fantastic. And you say you encountered people back home in Afghanistan as well. How did that come up? How did you start talking about that?
Well, they just explained it that they had this phase in their life that they felt this weird and intense amount of anxiety, and they had these thoughts of not feeling very real. I guess this condition is so overwhelming that it sticks with you as the memory of it, and even if you recover, you would like to share the story with others that you are, that doesn't know about it, and you say, "Hey, I had this moment in my life where I felt completely weird, and my brain had this different. I've experienced these different symptoms." So I think it stuck with people, so they can tell it as a story to someone else, and it began like that. That one of our colleagues in Afghanistan, we had a chat, and he explained to me that he had this condition about 2 years ago, and we talk about it, and I was like, no, he is he is describing DPNDR. And I said, explain me about the symptoms. And he said, I had this constant worry that something is wrong, that the world does not feel is not the way it was, and constant worries about his son and his daughter being sick. These associations and thinking too much with it. And I said to them, this is a very well known condition. Actually, it's called TPNDRs and anxiety, and explained to them, and we were just laughing about it as we talked because he was normal and healthy again. And I asked him how he did it, and he explained to me that at first he had to take some anxiety pills prescribed from his doctors, but eventually everything got back to normal. Because in Afghanistan, not everyone has this opportunity of internet and access to much information, so he just lived with his life and moved forward and got back normal.
That is fantastic. It's so good to hear. And great that the awareness of it is clearly growing, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get to a place soon where people will develop the symptoms, and then within the day, they'll find out what this is and what to do about it. Because it's that period of time between getting it and finding out what it is, that's the most difficult point, when you don't have a path forward. But when you find that path, you start moving towards it or on it.
I mean, it's good for people that they recover and just live with their life, but it also would be very, very positive and helpful for the community if they come back and talk about it and try to raise this awareness that it's completely fine or completely treatable. I mean, people do it. It's not that not anyone does it. Most people do it, but being creative with it, I also thought it would be very great if a bunch of people that have recovered come together and sit in a room and talk about it. I mean, how amazing would that be for someone who initially has these thoughts and these symptoms, stumble upon the video of 7 people that are talking about how great recovery is and how normal this condition is.
That's a really good idea. That's a good idea for a video. Actually, is like, getting 5 or 6 people together to talk about their experiences. Oh, you keep coming up with new ideas for my channel. Like,
I'm up for it, Sean. I'm up for it. I raise my hand. If you find some other people, let's have a chat and let's share the experience and this amazing journey of recovery.
brilliant. Brilliant. Well, look, if anyone's watching the video and they've also recovered or they're on the path to recovery, I mean, drop me a line if there's something we can make happen. I think it'd be really, really interesting. So Mo, what advice would you not give to somebody struggling with DP and DR? What's something that when you were going through it actually kept you stuck longer?
Um, I would say do not force yourself out of recovery. That's the big part. Do nothing that makes you stressed about it, or yeah, it's being impatient is also one of them. Give yourself time and be okay with it. Be actually okay with it. Sit with it. It's okay to have these thoughts. It's okay to whatever the anxiety shows you and makes you feel. Say to it, okay, I'm not bothered by it. Like the school bully. You know that example. Just let it be. It's. You will not die. It will not make you go. I don't know. It cannot suffocate you. Fortunately, it's not a condition where the symptoms make you give a migraine or headaches that are so severe that you have to take a pill or something that needs to stop. Your body can actually endure this. You're very strong. You're very strong. Humans in itself are very strong, and you can endure. You're very tough. You just actually don't know how tough you are. You can have these thoughts and actually still carry on with life. People who do the wrong stuff can manage to live with it more than 10 years. If people are always doing the wrong stuff can manage to, and they are in a very stressful condition because they are doing the wrong stuff, but still they can live with it. But if you stop analyzing it and thinking about it and doing the wrong things, you can live with it and eventually it will just go away. And that's my advice for people, and practice patience. See this condition as something that requires for you to practice your patience. It will up your tolerance to a point that after you recover, you see, I'm glad that I went through this, because now I have this big tolerance in my life of patience and enduring. I have this tough condition in the background while I tried to live my life, and I carried on with it. And after you recover, you know that if you have moments, in your life that you're very depressed or anxious or whatever happens in your life, you have this tolerance. You have proved to yourself how tough you are. So know that you're tough, and maybe we should also do some motivational videos about how tough someone can be when they are in DPDR, and how well the body um, is capable of enduring these emotions.
Absolutely. And the thing as well is that we feel like we're about to go crazy. We feel like we're going to die, and it's so not that. Like it's your your body is able to do this. It's a protective mechanism. Like not only is this not going to hurt you or kill you or drive you crazy, this is literally your body and brain's protective mechanism. It is there to protect you. It's like a fire alarm going off when there's no fire. The reason it feels so frightening is because there is no physical reason for it to be there. That's what it's the confusion of it that causes the fear. It's like, why is this happening to me? Because if it was happening while the house was on fire, you wouldn't give it a second thought. But because it's happening while you're perfectly safe in your apartment or your house or whatever, then you think, oh, something terrible is happening. It must be going crazy. It must be dying. But like your body is completely able to do this. Like there is no danger. It's not going to turn into anything worse. And in terms of like processing the experience as well, Mobin, I mean, do you feel happy that you went through it?
Yes, I'm very happy that I went through it. As I said, this experience made me know how tough I can be in situations that I don't really like. If something goes against my will and I don't like it, it's okay. I can be patient. Life doesn't always go the way you want it. And you have many instances in life where you want one thing, but you get completely the opposite, or something that is so bothering but you can just still carry on with life. And yeah, I would say this aspect of practicing patience has made my life so much better now when I think about it. And I mean it when I say I'm more patient than I was back then. It makes you mature in it, I would say. You become mature, and and you have seen now a different side of life. You have gone through something so stressful that made you go crazy, but you just stuck with it and lived your life, and it eventually left. It went away. So yeah, and definitely very happy that I went through it.
Same here. I I know that's going to sound wild to anybody watching this who's going through it, but when you're through it, you're like, okay, got it. And you have that familiarity with anxiety, which stays in your toolbox. And you always have it, and you have that strength and that toughness. Um, you might never need to use it again, but if you do, it's there, and you're good. And you have, yeah, yeah. Because once you're through it, you you understand that the reason this happened was because of a misunderstanding about what the symptoms are. But now that you know the symptoms, that knowledge stays with you forever, and it helps you to navigate all sorts of, like, even just day-to-day stress, like which is normal. It helps you to navigate that stuff in a much more healthy manner, you know.
Yeah, it shows you actually also the importance of some things. Sometimes some things doesn't need a solution. Like the condition teaches you, if you like, you can use an analogy of a snake just trying to bend itself around a chainsaw or a saw. And the more you try to find a solution, the snake is trying to tighten its grip into a saw. But if you practice patience and just let it be, eventually you're not gripping the saw anymore. Like if you think about the analogy of a snake and a saw, um, you just let it be, and you have a different way of dealing with things in the future situations in your life. Sometimes you feel horrible and there's nothing you can do about it. This is life, and exactly that is the way of then coming out of it and being healthy again.
Yeah, yeah. um, we tend to want to find a solution again in that immediate sense, trying to find a power button, the off switch. But essentially, DPDR and all anxiety-based conditions, they're essentially habits. They're habits of thought and behavior. And the way that we change a habit of thought and behavior is by implementing a new habit of thought and behavior and placing it on top of the old one, following the new habit and being patient, and seeing the small changes improve or change. Small changes happen over time. This is same with going to the gym, learning a language, changing your diet, quitting smoking. Same thing every time. New habit, small changes. So it's not about like, I'll find a solution to this right now. That trips us up. And instead we're patient and disciplined and give ourselves the time and space we need for this to happen. So it's a good teacher as well, it's it really teaches patience. And sound, I love, like, I really enjoy speaking with you, Mo, because it's, you've clearly taken, like, such positive lessons from the experience, and you've we do so much kind of digging into it and introspection when it happens, and it feels so wild that the possibility that, like, in a few years' time, that, like, you're completely recovered, and not only that, but you have taken all these positive life lessons from it that you are now using
Yeah.
as your life progresses.
Yeah, sure. I couldn't think back then when I had my first consultation with you that even 4 years afterwards we will be sitting here and chatting about it. I mean, how crazy is this? Uh, and giving back to the community. If you had said to me, Mo, you in 4 years' time, or I don't know, 2 years' time, even back when we had our first video for the channel, if you had said to me back then, Mo, we will be talking about this when you and I both will be completely fine talking about it, and I will upload this your recovery story on in my YouTube channel. I would have said to you, you are absolutely crazy. There's no way I can recover from this. And especially talking back about it and then posting a recovery story on YouTube. So yeah.
Oh my God. Like when I was going through this, if you had told me that, like, first of all, Mo, if you had told me I'd be starting a YouTube channel, well, actually, YouTube didn't exist back in 2005, so I would have known what you were talking about. But later on, if you had told me that you'd be starting a YouTube channel, you'd be in front of a camera telling people about this experience, I mean, my head would have exploded. Like, I mean, I couldn't stand in front of a camera or do a presentation or anything, like, not a hope, like. But, and also the idea of talking about the symptoms, like talking about these existential thoughts and these fears, absolutely not, absolutely not. But it just indicates like how much our fear of it completely evaporates as recovery continues. Like, it's complete normality. All the fears, all these terrible associations that we have with different things just like fade away. And then you kind of look back on it and you go like, wow, that was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
I should start a YouTube channel. I get Mo on to do an interview.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. um, Mo, so if someone's watching this interview, and I guarantee you there will be people watching this interview who are going through DP and triggered by a bad weed experience, and they're watching this interview and they're thinking to themselves like, God, the lads are having a great time. Good for them.
Yeah.
But I just don't believe it. Mine is different. Good for Mo that he recovered. Good for Sean that he recovered. But mine's different because my experience on weed was off the planet, like, and mine is different. And I just don't believe that I can recover. I just don't believe I can do it. What do you have to say to that person?
I want to say to them or to him that you're watching our video right now and you say, okay, good, fine, they have recovered, I understand how to deal with it. And you go back to living your life and you see that it's not working for you. Whatever we chatted here now, you try to implement it in your life or in this condition and you realize, no, it's not working. You're worrying and you have anxiety and you come to this conclusion that they have recovered, I don't know how to do it. If you come to this conclusion, I want you to say to yourself, okay, I do not care. I want you to give to not care so less about this stuff and this condition that even watching this whole recovery stories, going up and down the internet and not finding anything, and you come to the conclusion that you're a lost hope, you cannot do anything about it. I want you to be okay with that thing. I want you to be okay with that situation where you say, there's no hope for me. And I want you to realize and come to this conclusion, it's okay to be so hopeless in that moment that you think there's no way out. If you can be okay with that, you will understand that would be the turning point of your recovery. That even if you say there's no way out for me, be okay with that and live your life. Because there's nothing else for you to do. If you come to the conclusion that there's nothing else, there's no way for you to come out of this condition, eventually you have to carry on with your life. That can be something positive, actually, when you come to this conclusion that your case is so different, there's no way out for you. This can be positive because maybe that conclusion will get you to that point that you don't care about it anymore. And if you focus for people who are going through recovery stories, everyone has said this. They have reached a point that you said, I don't know how to deal with it. It doesn't work for me. And then they said, okay, I'm fine with it. And I will live normally, no matter what anxiety does with me. And yeah, that would be my advice for them. just don't care.
It's excellent advice. And it also goes back to what we were saying earlier about constantly wanting to switch it off and waking up each morning thinking, is it there? Why is it still there? And if it's there, I have to change my day according to it. And then there comes a point where you've tried everything. You're so frustrated with it. You're so sick of it, and nothing seems to work. And then you say to yourself, okay, well, I'm just going to do what I was going to do anyway. I'm just going to go boxing. I'm just going to go to the movies. I'm going to go take my dog for a walk because, like, what else am I going to do, you know? And I remember when that happened to me, what I felt like at first, it felt like I was giving up. It felt like I was surrendering, because if I'm not researching this thing all day, what am I doing? Now I'm giving up on trying to find a solution. But what actually happens is that when you stop trying to fix it in the moment and you just go and take the dog for a walk and listen to a podcast, it gives your brain the permission to just stop trying to fix it, to unpack it and pull it apart. And you just take the hands off it and you let it be there and you do something else. And you start to feel a little better. And it's like, okay, so this is the opposite of what normally happens. When I have a problem, I attack it until I fix it. But with anxiety-based conditions, it's the attacking it that keeps it going. The constantly trying to understand it and figure it out. Because at some point you do understand it. At some point you have all the information that you need. And then after that, it just becomes scratching an itch.
Exactly.
But taking your hands off it, letting it, and it's not giving up, like, but you're just saying, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm not spending another day walking around thinking about the size of the universe when, like, I want to just go and meet my friends and hang out and play video games. You know, I have other stuff to do. And it feels like a defeat at the start, but you learn that is your, what's the phrase I'm looking for? You are training yourself to be indifferent to the thoughts and feelings. And as unusual as that feels initially, that's an integral part of recovery.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so beautifully put together. It's exactly how you describe it. I had a smile on my face the whole time because that's exactly what I did. And you describe it so well. It's exactly that. So everyone, just go back to what Sean said right now. It's exactly this. It feels like giving up. You feel like you're giving up. You're not trying to figure it out, and you just let it be. And whatever it shows you, whatever it takes you, let it take you. You just go on and carry on with your life. But on the other another note, it's also important to just have a healthy lifestyle. I mean, you don't have to be busy because of the anxiety, because do not think about it like that, but just be busy. Just have a main um thing that you are occupied with. Maybe it can be school, it can be work, it can be reading, something that takes most time of your day, like 6 up to 8 hours. Working on school takes that off. But if you don't really have anything to do, I don't know, do something. Just don't sit around and meditate all day, which no one actually does. But I'm trying to I'm trying to prove a point. Like, just have a healthy lifestyle, because the mixture of being lost in and busying yourself with something, and then going back to think about it again naturally, and then naturally being back to being occupied with something, is a good balance to calm your nervous system. So the nervous system goes back out of it and thinks, oh, okay, it's still there, I don't care. And you naturally do something else, and you are in that and you're busy with it. You busy yourself naturally with it. You don't force yourself to get busy. That's also something important. Do not force yourself to be busy on it. Just let it happen naturally. You've accepted that you will live with it no matter how long, and this constantly going back into busying yourself and then naturally coming out and going back. I think that's the process, and you slowly your body learns. Okay, like exposure therapy, just your body learns that it's okay to have it, and you will eventually get out of it. 100% almost the case.
Yeah, yeah. Which brings me to my next question, Mo. Something I probably would have asked you in the first interview as well, but I just like to ask everyone. Now that you've fully recovered from depersonalization, derealization disorder triggered by a bad weed experience, is getting back to normal really getting back to normal?
Yes. I mean, I don't know how to answer that question because now it feels not an important question. Back then I wanted to hear someone say, yeah, it's 100% normal. But now it's so normal that you can even try to find a fault in it, but you won't be able to. That's how normal it is. You can really go back to extremely checking yourself if the sky is feeling real, or if you really are in your body. You can have these thoughts. You can check yourself and still find nothing. And you will after 5 minutes you would say, okay, I'm doing a stupid thing right now. So you will give up on it and carry on with your life. So no trigger point, no nothing. Even if you, after some time of recovery, even after 2 or 3 months of recovery, if you feel a little bit anxious, which is bound to happen because life is full of moments where the body gets anxious a little bit, you know what to do. You have done it. You know exactly what not to do and what to do. You just will let it be. Feel that fear and just carry on with your life. And it's nothing different. It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mo, if you could go back and tell your DPDR self one sentence, one bit of advice, what would it be?
Well, it's hard to put it in one sentence, but I would say to him, you can get through this. You're stronger than it. It's not stronger than you. You can think of the analogy of boxing. I would say to myself, back then I boxed, I would say, imagine yourself, you're standing in the ring and anxiety is your opponent and he punches you hard in the face. You do not dodge it. You do not block it. Let him hit it. Let him hit you. Let him have his hardest punch, and he will hit you again, and he will hit you again and again and again, and you just take it and carry on with life. And eventually, those punches get weaker and weaker, and more less and more less, and it eventually stop. And then comes again a very weak punch, but eventually it will fade away, and the opponent is just bored and gives up and says, "You have won." That's what I would say to myself.
That's excellent advice. Mo, it's been so great to catch up with you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the channel and catching us up on your story. In the meantime, I know it's something that people often worry about, is that, like, okay, but is recovery really recovery, and here you are, years later, and with life completely back to normal. So these interviews are valuable, and so I sincerely appreciate your taking your time to catch us up. And I love that you're clearly so passionate about it as well, and you've put a lot of thought into it, and I love hearing your take and your opinion on the whole experience, and everyone on the channel as well. And also thank you again for offering to do the very first interview, because that's the reason there's a library of interviews there now. So thank you.
No, thank you, Sean. Actually, I have to also thank you for everything you have done for the community and the time you take out of your private life to do these things. And yeah, a big thank you to you.
Of course, it's my pleasure. It's great to see you again, Mo. Keep up the good work, and enjoy life in Munich. And we'll go for a beer sometime soon. All right.
Of course, yeah, we will do that. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Take care, man. Bye bye.
Bye bye.